welcome back to my channel Button and Pip. I'm Adele. Now, I've been dressmaking for myself for about 4 years now, and within those 4 years I have made hundreds of mistakes. So I'm popping on today to talk about my top 5 tips for anybody that's on the start of their dressmaking journey. Now, my tip number 1 would be that you always have to measure yourself before you start any project. So first of all, do not assume that your ready to wear dress size is the same as the size on the pattern. So before you even start, take your bust, your waist and your hip measurements and try and have a look on the back. So I've got a pattern here. On the back, they will always have the measurements, and correlate, match up where your measurements fit to that, to what size the pattern is. Now, I am a size 10, 12 within ready to wear, and I have to say at the very start, I just assumed that I'd be size 10 in everything, and I made so many mistakes in that way that a lot of my first garments just didn't fit nicely, or they just felt uncomfortable when I was wearing them, and it kind of put a dampener on it when I've spent hours on this garment, that it just doesn't feel nice to wear. So always, please, measure yourself and check with the measurement pattern on the back. Now, it's particularly important if you are using different pattern companies, because I've definitely noticed certain pattern companies have a particular block that they take their patterns from, and there are some blocks out there that fit my body better than others. So that's my first tip: become very good friends with your tape measure, and at the end of the day, it's a number that nobody is ever going to know. So no one's ever going to go, what size is that? You're just going to go, wow, I love your dress. So that's one thing I would always say. Now, tip number 2 would be very careful with your fabric selections at the very start. Now, my ready to wear before I started dressmaking had lots of floaty fabrics and lots of stretch fabrics, and I just thought, right, that'll be what I want to start making. And I have made so many mistakes to the point that I've just had to give up because of the wrong fabric choice. Fabric choice, first of all, to the pattern, but also fabric choice to my own ability. So I always say, don't limit yourself, but just be very careful if you're at the start of your dressmaking journey. So I've got an example of 2 fabrics here to show you. So here I've got some gingham, which is a nice lightweight cotton, and then I've got this fabric, which is just gorgeous. Oh, I'll pick that up in a minute, which is just gorgeous, but it's some crepe. Now you can see that's really floaty, and it does actually have a little bit of stretch, especially on the bias. So if I was making my first dress or top, even though I would probably lust over this, I'd have a go first with something that's a little bit easier. Now, also, if you're trying to insert a zip for the first time or buttons for the first time, it is much easier to practice that on some more, well, a more stable fabric. So I would definitely go for cotton or cotton lawn, cotton poplin first. Once you get confident, the world is your oyster, and you can take the most amazing fabrics and create the most amazing dresses. So that is tip number 2. Now, tip number 3 is become friends with this. The seam ripper or the unpicker. Now, I have lost so many of these in the past. I've always ended up with the small one that came with my sewing machine, but I definitely say invest in a really good seam ripper. I'm on my second one of these because I have actually lost the other one, but it will turn up, it will turn up. So this is a prim one that I picked up from my local shop, and it fits really nicely in my hands. And it's just, I don't think I've ever made it to the end of a project without using one of these. So using one of these is not a sign of weakness. It doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. I'd say just go for it, but always have this close to hand. Right, tip number 4, I think I'm on now, is another equipment. Let me just get what I dropped earlier, which is get some nice scissors, okay? I completely underestimated the necessity of a good pair of scissors. So these are my 2 favourite scissors, even though I've got others there on my board. These are the ones that my husband bought me. They are some Merchant & Mills one, really nice tailor shears. And I use this if I'm going to cut out large or long pieces of fabric because they fit really well. And they've got this flat part there that fits really nicely on the table like this. Also, never use your fabric scissors on anything else other than fabric. So even if you need to quickly cut out a piece of a pattern that you've forgotten to do, please don't use your fabric scissors, because by using these on paper means that they're going to get blunt and then they're just not going to cut through the fabric as nicely. So they're the ones that I do the majority of my big cutting out, but then these are the ones that I have close to me from by my machine while I'm sewing. So these were just ones that I picked up actually from Kath Kingston. I think I got them as a present, but I've only ever used them on fabric. And I don't know if anyone else out there has this trouble, but other people in my family seem to come into my sewing room, take my scissors and use them for a wonder of different things. But they've learned over time, never ever use mummy's sewing scissors for paper. So they sit here on, well, I can't fit them on all the way around, but they fit there on my sewing board, and they know never to touch them. Now, tip number 5 is to say never give up, okay? Dressmaking is a secret power. The fact that you can create a garment just out of a flat piece of fabric is a most amazing thing. And be proud of what you've made. So that would be my very top tip. Go for it. Don't ever think that a garment or a project is ever out of your reach. Go for it. If you make a mistake, like I say, the seam ripper is okay. But the most amazing feeling is when you're out in your homemade clothes and somebody compliments you on them. So I'm going to finish this whole top 5 as saying be proud of what you've made. Do not point out any of the faults, because, like, for example, I know exactly where the faults are on this top, but nobody else is ever going to notice them. Even my sewing friends don't notice my mistakes. And I've really tried not to point out those mistakes when anybody compliments me now on my handmade outfits. Very often I just say thank you, and it sparks up a conversation of, why don't you have a go? So like, I've met so many new people through sewing, and one of my really good friends at work is just on the beginning of her dressmaking journey as well. And the one thing I just keep saying to her is go for it. And I can't wait to see what you've made. So there we go. There's my top 5 tips for any new dressmakers out there. And please comment any top tips that you have below. And I just have to say, dressmaking has changed my life. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it has, and it's not going to change. I'm going to keep pushing myself to my boundaries and pushing myself to try new things. Right, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for watching today. If you like my videos, please subscribe and have a look back at my previous vlogs. And I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.